I think that we should give M. Night Shyamalan his flowers for this one. You know, I think he deserves it for once. Hi, hello everyone, and welcome back to Sisu Studios. This is Jason here, your captain speaking. And today we're going to be talking about M. Night Shyamalan's newest film, Knock at the Cabin. So this film is an old one. It kind of gives a very nostalgic feel to it. It invokes nostalgia in its presentation. You know, like from the beginning, from its intro, it uses the old Universal intro and it goes right into the intro. Just kind of gives like a feeling like a 1980s to probably even a 1960s kind of film where you just go right into it, you roll the credits, and you already are just into the film, you know? It's a old movie wrapped in a coat of paint that allows fresh takes on horror tropes. Then, you know, that's kind of M. Night Shyamalan's MO at this point, as we kind of all know. He's a king of twists, we've seen. Except, this film is possibly the most straightforward effort to date, and is a clear departure from his other efforts, namely the divisive efforts of Glass and Old. Knock at the Cabin features a plethora of uncomfortable moments, from the gratuitous close-ups to the camera turns that makes the deaths shown feel more real, even if they're not shown in full detail. The emotions and reactions from Jonathan Groff, Ben Aldridge, and film newcomer Kristen Cui are what sells that horror. This simple but effective setting is a great juxtaposition of the feelings of smallness that is perceived through the actions of Eric and Andrew, and the greater apocalyptic time that is shown, mostly through TV screen, the only glimpse into the current world that we get during this film. Even with the nostalgia in its tone, directing, even down to the distinct lack of sound here, M. Night Shyamalan manages to make a compelling and interesting film that is a good mix of atmospheric horror and a good mix of current cinematography and editing. What really sells the film for me are the characters themselves. The premise of the movie is something that feels like such a vintage film. The end of the world is coming and you all have only one choice: kill one of your own, or have humanity be judged and let the end of the world wreak havoc. Oh, spoilers for everything going on from here. The four characters, the chosen ones, they seem crazy. And the way that they kind of come off as, it doesn't seem surprising. It feels like it comes from the deep realms of those parts of Reddit. You know, those parts of Reddit. When humanity gets judged, they have to sacrifice themselves and another plague happens. Rupert Grint, Nikki Amuka Bird, and Abby Quinn really sell the characters, really showing their good intentions despite the kind of messed up, dare I say it, fucked up situation at hand. However, I do believe that this film is really a star vehicle for Dave Bautisita. I will go more into his career in a later video. His try at more dramatic acting has impressed many people, me included. Singling him out, this role felt so intentional to begin his transformation into a more serious actor, following his streak of character roles, which are like more bombastic, more over the top, like his wrestling persona. You got Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, you got Duke from Glass Onion. They really are like over the top characters, which seems to be kind of more in contrast to what looks like a more introverted nature that Dave Bautista has. And this role kind of makes this more nuanced, more quiet, more kind of like laser focused, sharp focused take on a very kind-hearted person who really only uses his physical features when it's needed. This character, Leonard, very much so has a leader capability, as, you know, he's a coach. He has a whole bunch of kids that he's trying to protect, he's trying to save, and what he's known for what Dave is known for doesn't really come into play until about the last third of the film, where all of the action happens. The rest of the four also have valid reasons for wanting to go through with this. They all have something to say. Sabrina is a nurse. Adrian is a cook with a son who has dreams of opening a restaurant. Redmond, he's trying to get his life together after a series of unfortunate events that will come into play later. He served time for a prior incident. And the same for Eric and Andrew. Speaking of, much of the runtime is actually spent going deep into Eric and Andrew's relationship, which is a trial of trying to have people accept them for who they are because they're a queer couple. And this take on the family is very interesting because you finally get to see more queer characters in a leading role. A queer family, a great family, mind you, taking charge, being in the forefront, being active in their actions, even if it's a horror movie. They have a struggle of being accepted and trying to assimilate into the culture of heteronormativity. It comes to a head where Andrew gets assaulted at a bar by mystery assailant. The movie makes you assume it's Redmond, Rupert Grint's character, but we're not entirely sure. It causes Andrew to purchase a gun and go into self-defense classes, which I vibe with because it's the fact that we have to basically take more hold. It's certain that how a lot of queer people, we have to take more hold, which includes buying guns, which includes going to self-defense classes to just defend ourselves so we can live. So that was a pretty good take into the psychology of someone who run by trauma. And it's a trope that I've noticed that's been all around, that's kind of as old as time. You have someone who's you can say other, gets beat up by someone of the prominent culture, and they basically go all in on trying to help themselves either for revenge or to make sure that it doesn't happen again by aiming themselves up, with physical ammo, making themselves stronger, or learning something in martial arts that, to protect themselves. It's a trope that I've noticed a lot, and it's a reality for many queer people of today that have no choice but to fight fire with fire to be able to keep and defend their peace. The queerness of the family adds an extra layer of nuance to this already interesting story and makes it more complex. Is this a queer bashing attempt? Was this all true? Is this really part of the apocalypse? The reason why I say that is because of this history of, people queer baiting, and not only queer baiting, but hurting queer people just for existing, going into violence, resorting to violence first and foremost without even trying to understand queer people, and just going and beating up and killing queer people just because, they're different. It's really sad. It's a sad reality for a lot of people. And I feel like this movie shows that very well. There's one last thing to point out, and that is the ending. The ending has been modified for the source material that kind of fit with possibly for more, theaters, for more studios, even though we'll get into that in a little bit. He did self-fund this, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Shymalan has a tendency to have more of a not so bleak ending, kind of like a more spiritual feel to it, or more kind of uplifting or positive-ish feel, even though everything surrounding those films are, as they say, fucked up. So, not even gonna lie. Speaking of M. Night Shyamalan, I kind of think we need to give him his flowers for this one. Give him a break from everything. I do believe this film is probably one of his best ones, and this Knock at the Cabin, I feel like it wouldn't have been able to be done justice had it be done by another director. The way this movie is directed is progression it's camera work, it's almost everything. It's just so him. Like it feels so stereotypically Shyamalan, but yet not at the same time. You can tell really where his influences went in terms of presentation, which include, I feel like, The Shining and all of those very old horror movies that are more atmospheric in tone rather than just, slasher. It is a testament to how much he has survived this industry, especially with the failures that can run anybody out of town. He persevered. After 2013's After Earth and the previous film, The Last Airbender, being critically panned and becoming box office flops all around, he took out a $5 million loan against his house and made The Visit. And because of The Visit being so successful, in terms of how cheap his movies are to make, it has kind of gone on for about 5 films now. He has a new one coming out, I think Trapped, that's coming out about 2024, that is either filming or is about to start filming. I do feel like there's kind of a renaissance of his work that is going on as a result of these wins, and also that a reevaluation of his work feels like it's kind of going underway, and I'm kind of here for it. I do believe that M. Night Shyamalan is coming back, and this is a great way to show how that is coming back. Overall, I feel like it's a great film, and I do believe that it is at least a 3 out of 5 for me, if I were to give arbitrary ratings. But I don't like doing that. I just like talking about this stuff, Let's do that. So I think that'll be it for now. Come join us next time. We're going to talk about more movies, of course. And if you want to support me, I got a link tree to where you can get, donate for Ko-fi. You can, subscribe. You can look at my website. There's a whole bunch of things you can do to support me. So if you like that, please like and subscribe so we can have more fun and talk about more talk about more film. I didn't know like that. Until then, it's been Jason from CC Studios, and peace out.